Okay, so now let's have a look. Remember, we talked about the altar in terms of its shape, square. Here it's 2 platforms. There are 9 steps between each platform. This marble entryway comes from the south. That's the heavenly direction. Just like in the map of the city, heavenly direction is in the south, right? The emperor this is actually reserved for the emperor to come up and make the offering, right? You'll see in the temple of heaven, it'll be 3 platforms, it'll be round. Actually, even the area of the square is different according to 6s here because it's earth orientated. There it's 9s. Let's explore what the emperor was doing here. I mean, we have evidence of this ceremony taking place, the emperor doing it from 200 BC, from the Qin period. You know the terracotta warriors in Xi'an when he unified China? He did these ceremonies. In fact, we have evidence of this ceremony going back to 2,500 BC. But it wasn't the emperor of China, it was usually the chief of the village, or even where all the men of the household line up at that time of year and make an offering. And then the Qin unified China, he said, now I am the boss and I do the ceremony for everyone. So let's explore. This ceremony takes place on the Chinese New Year. We call it Chunjie, right? What makes Chinese New Year? How do we choose the date?
Through our lunar calendar.
Through a lunar calendar, Chinese lunar calendar. And then what kind of moon is it for the start of the year? Like today, new moon, because it's a new year. Like today in the Chinese lunar calendar is the 15th, because it's a full moon today. Yeah, the 1st is always new moon. By knowing the date, you know where the moon is, right? But it's solar lunar calendar. A lot of this philosophy is based on this idea. Okay, let's think about it simplistically. The earth is going around the sun. You have winter solstice, you have equinox, you have summer solstice, you have autumn equinox, you have these directions, right? At this time of year, they know the yang is rising here. So they choose a new moon close to this February 4. How they do that is solar lunar. First, from the winter solstice, the second new moon after winter solstice is the new year, all right? And the new year, this is the ceremony here. Just like at the other end, in the autumn festival, it's the full moon during this period. There's a solar period and there's a lunar period. They intermingle to make what's happening on the planet, right? And the full moon in autumn will bring the energy back down. So the new moon, this Chinese New Year, 3 days before the ceremony, the emperor comes. He goes to a fasting palace. All of these altars have a fasting palace. They have a music academy. Yeah, they have a heavenly butchery. And remember, this is not for the public. This is not a show. This is locked off for the emperor and his assistants only. He goes to the fasting palace for 3 days, abstains from eating. Actually, he's only supposed to eat the sacrificial meats. Yeah. He meditates. He writes poems, you know, and we have copies of these poems. They're all about, I am a small piece of grass compared to your enormous power. And he chooses one on the day of the ceremony, sunrise. Remember, this is a very humbling moment for the emperor. The emperor is supposed to be the boss of and the most important person in the world, you know, in this sense. And in this, he is nothing compared to the larger. And that's what he has to be reverent about and get and submit, yeah, and be obedient to this. He gets this, they don the robes, they prepare the ceremony back here, they have the sacrifice. Actually, the sacrifice is a young pig, a young bull, and a young lamb. Yeah, like pure ritualized kind of, similar to pagan rituals in many ways, right? Come up with the sacrifice. Remember, here is sunrise on one of the coldest days of the year, right? There are huge candles burning. The altar is surrounded by junipers. Junipers have a good chief for ceremony, they call it. This is open to the heavens. It's a raised mound. There is smoke and fragrance from the junipers. There is divine musicians playing. There is what we call martial dancing, kind of trance dancers in here. And the guy dons his robes and he comes in and he offers the sacrifice, gets on his hands. It's very ritualized. 9 times this way, da, da, da. He offers the meats, he offers the wine, he offers some of the finest artworks of the culture. A few things, actually. Then he leaves the ceremony. How do we know if the emperor's done a good job? According to traditional Chinese culture, what is the purpose of this ceremony?
Harvest.
Harvest ceremonies we link to. It's actually more accountable than that. So it's about the harvest. And how do we know if he's done well? It's linked to rain. So we got this period of the Chunjie, and then when this period comes, the Guyu, the year is first separated into 12, like the constellations, the 12 full moons that we get. and then it's separated into 24, yin yang like this. And during these periods, these solar periods, there's one called the grain rains, just passed a couple of months ago. And the rain should come. If the rain does not come, the leadership is in question. Because the job of the leader is to harmonize the people, and then the leader must harmonize the people with heavens, and heaven rewards the people with normal weather patterns, which means the crops can grow, right? Indeed, there's a number, and actually what happens is that there's a number of stories throughout Chinese history, and if the droughts come, or if this doesn't happen, then eventually they internally remove, or there's an external removal, and the great stories are that the true emperor puts himself for the sacrifice. Because if he believes that he's doing it in his heart, then he should be able to, and then the clouds form and the rain comes down, and it's, oh, this is the great leader, really. It's kind of like, but it's a lot of stories about, it's really about in your heart are you doing it, not just for show. And the emperor may think he's doing it, or he thinks he knows this, but is he really showing and being obedient and being what we call the reverent kind of ideas, yeah, the prostration we call, yeah, the ritual washing and ceremonial kind of ideas. And at different times of the years, he goes to different altars according to the lunar-solar calendar to provide these ceremonies, to keep everything in harmony. Now, the interesting thing is that even the Mongolians that came in the Yuan dynasty, or the northeastern Chinese that took over Chinese Han people, that was not part of their original culture. But when they ruled China, they all did it. Because if you do it, and then the people have an ability to follow.